The first time I realized how invisible people thought I was, it happened in a place that smelled like burnt coffee and old vinyl booths, the kind of diner where time gets stuck on purpose. One second, I was just reaching for a napkin, minding my business, and the next second a hand came out of nowhere and knocked the world sideways. Not a punch, not a shove, a slap. Loud, sharp, meant to humiliate more than hurt. The room froze, and I understood something real fast. This wasn't about what I did. This was about who he thought I was. Let me back up a little. My name doesn't matter anymore. But back then, I was a 69-year-old woman living in a town called Pine Ridge, Arkansas. Small town, big opinions, long memories. I spent my life keeping my head down, raising my kid right, working honest jobs, helping when I could. I wasn't loud, I wasn't rich, I wasn't connected. To most people, especially people with power, I was just background noise. The man who slapped me was Sheriff Nolan Creed. Tall, thick-necked badge, polished like it meant something holy. He came from one of those families where the uniform gets passed down like a wedding ring. Around Pine Ridge, folks said he kept the peace. What they meant was he kept people afraid, especially the ones who looked like me, talked like me, or didn't have the right last name. That morning, I was sitting in the corner booth at Lila Mae's diner, same booth I'd sat in every Thursday for years. The waitress, Hannah, poured my coffee and asked how my boy was doing. I told her he was fine, working overseas, same answer I always gave. Then the door opened and the air shifted. You know the feeling, like a storm walking in on two legs. Creed didn't sit down. He never did. He walked slow, scanning faces, letting the badge do the talking. He stopped at my table and told me I was in his seat. I looked around confused because there were empty booths everywhere. I told him I didn't see a sign. He leaned closer, close enough that I could smell tobacco on his breath, and said the sign was him standing there. Then he started in on my car, said it was parked crooked, said it was a hazard. I told him calmly I parked between the lines, same way I always did. That's when his smile disappeared. He asked if I was calling him a liar. The diner went dead quiet. Hannah froze mid-pour. Everyone knew what was coming, and nobody wanted to be part of it. He reached out and tipped my coffee cup. Hot coffee spilled across the table and onto my lap. It burned, but what hurt worse was him looking at me like it was my fault. He told me to apologize. I asked him real quiet why I should apologize for him hurting me. That's when I said it. I called him a bully. I didn't even see the hand move. Just heard the crack and felt myself falling. I remember the floor felt cold, and my glasses slid away like they were embarrassed to be near me. He shouted something about respecting the law, then walked out like he'd just swatted a fly. Nobody helped me up until the door closed behind him. I didn't cry in the diner. I waited until I got to my car. My hands shook so bad I had to sit there for a minute before I could even start the engine. I didn't call the mayor. I didn't call a lawyer. I called my son. He answered on the second ring voice, calm, steady, halfway across the world. When he heard me say his name, he knew. When I told him what happened, there was this pause on the line, not silence exactly, more like something heavy settling into place. He told me he was coming home. I told him not to. He said he wasn't asking. 2 days later, a black pickup with out-of-state plates rolled into Pine Ridge. People barely noticed. They remembered my boy as a skinny kid who ran track and kept his head in books. They didn't recognize the man who stepped out of that truck. Taller, broader eyes, sharper. Quiet in a way that made people uncomfortable. He didn't go looking for trouble. Trouble found him anyway. Creed drove by my house, slow, real slow, staring. My son watched from the porch, calm as a stone. That night, he told me something I hadn't heard before. He said, "Mama, I'm not here to fight him. I'm here to show everyone who he really is." The next few days felt strange, like the town was holding its breath. My son went places, talked to people, asked questions. He didn't threaten anyone. He didn't raise his voice. He just listened. Funny thing about small towns, secrets travel faster than gossip when someone finally wants them to. What Creed didn't know was that my son wasn't alone. He had friends. Not loud ones, not obvious ones. The kind of people who notice details, who document instead of react. Cameras, records, patterns. Suddenly, things that had always been brushed off started lining up. Cars seized for no reason. Cash that disappeared. Complaints that went nowhere. Creed made his move on a Sunday morning. Thought he'd scare us back into our place. He showed up with deputies and a warrant claiming my son was running something illegal out of my shed. Neighbors came out onto their porches. Phones came out. That part mattered more than Creed realized. When they found the bag he'd planted, my son told him to open it right there. Creed grinned like he'd won. He unzipped it, expecting drugs. Instead, a cloud of blue powder exploded into his face, glittering in the sunlight. People laughed, then stopped laughing when a screen lit up against my house. Footage played. Clear as day. Creed tipping my coffee, Creed slapping me. One of his deputies planting the bag. Audio of him using slurs he thought nobody heard. The crowd didn't move at first, then they did. Forward, angry, awake. Creed panicked.